Everyone. Welcome back to Between the Joneses.
Mendoza's.
I'm still laughing and I'm like, so many people, all of our people watching are like, it's so annoying. I'm going to keep doing it. Hi, Case.
Those people.
All
What's up,
right. So we
Jess?
haven't been here in a minute and I apologize. We've had some life's been happening. How are you, Casey? Let's start there.
I'm doing a lot better. Thanks. Thanks for asking, Jess. Thanks for checking in. I was dealing
Yeah.
with some illness myself. And then with the holidays, it's just, where's the time go?
Did you Are you still doing the Easter eggs and baskets and all the things and the candy? And
We do a scavenger hunt for the kids.
I was gonna say all the propaganda, but I won't go there.
We like to celebrate the return of the sun to the northern hemisphere.
Yes, thank
The
you.
SU.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yes. How about you guys?
Well, we didn't have the kids this year and probably not. They probably didn't. We didn't do anything. We're kind of over even the dyeing of the eggs because dye's just like terrible for you.
Mm,
So we are party poopers. We did though reflect and have some spiritual time. So that was nice. That was
okay.
that was nice. What else? We never would have thought to call it this or know what it was, but because everyone's talking about it, definitely going through some perimenopause because of the hot flashes, my mood swings.
Hot flashes?
And it's at night. It's at night where I'm like really cold and then I'm really hot, sweating.
Mm.
Not fun.
I mean, yeah, we have to deal with our biology daily. So
I know.
it always can, throw you for a loop.
It zaps me for a good 2 days. It's just and, like, I kind of feel it coming on, and so I'm trying to be mindful of that, especially around the kids. Uh, so, yeah. Have you had any experience or feel any of that?
Yeah, probably. I just try to exercise through it.
I know, I try not to think about it either, like, too, because I think the more I'm thinking about it, the more I could spiral, so yeah, I try just to same, like, move, keep moving, work out, do something else.
Absolutely.
So that's been fun, and then I actually got to witness Mullins hit the game-winning shot against UConn and, versus Duke. I wasn't there. We were out, though, just getting an app and a cocktail, and I was watching I just happened to look up, it was, like, a minute and 30 seconds to go. They were behind by, like, 5 or 6 points, and then it was, like, 3 or 4, and then it was, like, 3, and I'm like so my mindset went to, "They're not gonna win," to, "They could tie this game," to, "Oh my gosh, they just won this game." We just
Right.
kinda watched history. It was a big deal. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I saw like clips on the
He
TikTok.
did. Did you see did you see it after, like, the
Yeah.
highlights? Yeah, it
Yeah.
was pretty good.
Yeah, it's basketball. So my
I'm liking
favorites.
basketball more and more, but it's just because Taj is playing.
Yeah.
No, I like March Madness. I'm not gonna say that. Basketball's fun. It's fast. I like baseball.
So what are we talking about today?
So today is this is a heavy one. This can't if for me anyway. Behind the attitude is kind of
Okay, so
the
we're talking
preface.
about
I kind of wanted to open it, a lot of us in the space that we're in refer to athletes that have really big emotions, and we'll get to other mannerisms too, but they have an attitude problem. And so, what if what we call an attitude problem is actually a misunderstanding? And so, for me, where I am in life right now at 44, it's almost always, and I'll use the absolute, it's almost always a misunderstanding. So, today I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about something that shows up everywhere in sports, attitude problems, and why that label might be missing the bigger picture. And it really is, from your young little kiddo starting off playing a sport, a 7-year-old, to a professional acting, having those big feelings. So, Casey, when you hear attitude problem, what does that usually mean in your experience?
I don't know. Did I have an attitude problem? I feel like I just had attitude.
Well, and it doesn't even have to be you personally. Maybe you witnessed it. And just in your overall experience, when you hear the word attitude problem, what comes to mind?
I think disrespect comes to mind. You're being disrespectful. You're displaying behavior that is negative output. What about you?
Jessica Jones?
No comment.
So back, I don't know, like my experience would be for me, anger. I don't, and I've said this before, anger shows up in attitude problems, shutting down, not being a good teammate.
So was that
Those
disrespectful?
Yeah, well, from those if we're just talking about when we hear attitude problem, absolutely, sure, disrespectful, talking back, and those are some examples. So talking back, lack of effort, body language is a big one, and disengagement, which I've kind of already said, shutting down.
Yeah, I feel like for me, I was opposite. Like my attitude gave me fuel.
Yeah, I would say mine could do that at times because I was
Mhm.
so competitive, and then other times it would just completely and it ended up it just tore me apart in college, and I think that conversation, though, is a bigger picture of where my coaches labeled me, and they
Mhm.
misunderstood what was actually going on behind the quote unquote attitude.
Right.
So, and we'll get to that. What are the common situations where this label gets used?
I think in my experience, this label gets used with athletes who are arrogant, who like know they're really good. And so they feel like they can get away with certain behaviors.
So you're saying not that you agree or disagree with this, but what you've seen is the athlete thinks this great player, therefore they can act however they want.
Yeah. So the behavior is justified.
Okay.
And that's as a coach and also as a former athlete myself, because I think that's where my attitude stemmed from, my confidence and abilities, but then also being proud of that to a point where it was just maybe a little inappropriate because I was like flaunting and being arrogant.
Arrogance. And so are you equating arrogance to an attitude problem?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it could go both ways. Your attitude doesn't necessarily equate to negative
Mhm.
as far as the way that we're seen. Some people maybe like flaunt that attitude problem.
Mhm. Yeah, because I think you can be proud of your skill and ability, but, like, when arrogance is, like, when you're trying to use it as a way to, like, put others down, I guess.
Yeah. Or maybe they're acting or doing things that way because something that's happening internally within them.
Mhm.
Maybe it has nothing to do with other people.
Right. And I would say I experience that now as a coach and like director of my own club. A lot of attitude that I see, I do believe kind of stems from something that's happening in their lives that doesn't even maybe even relate to, coming into the gym and being with the team. But it's just manifesting in this way because it just comes out, especially if you don't have self-control.
Yeah, or self-control, coping mechanisms, self-awareness
Mhm.
is a huge one. And so before I move on, so there's a lot of outward behaviors that we see
Mhm.
that when we see it, and it could be a parent, it could be a director, it could be a coach, it could be another teammate,
Mhm.
we go right and we jump right to the conclusion, oh, they have an attitude problem. So that's what we see, but what's underneath it? What are some reasons an athlete might appear to have a bad attitude?
Right. So we just kind
Key
of talked
word
about
here.
that.
Yeah, a key word here, appear. They are making a lot of mistakes. They maybe are in a fight with somebody, like they're having some conflict.
In
That
a
could be
relationship
one reason. Yeah,
outside of
maybe with the coach, they're mad at the coach because they're sitting on the bench,
Mhm.
maybe something at home, maybe with a friend, who knows? But that could appear to what some of the reasons why they would have a bad attitude. Maybe
Mhm.
they didn't get enough sleep. When
Right.
I when I don't sleep enough, I'm a different person.
Yeah, but did you know that back then?
Heck no. No. It was just again, going to, like, the reason why we're having this episode is because we just jumped to that conclusion.
Right.
She has a really bad attitude.
Mhm.
So what's something people often get wrong about this? And this is kind of where we're gonna dive into it.
What do people get wrong? As an outsider looking in,
Yes. So when we label this athlete, this person, you have an attitude, what could we get wrong about it?
I think what we get wrong is that most people in that state of mind don't actually wanna be there.
Yes,
I
yes.
think they don't like it either, but it's like they get kinda stuck in this, like, loop, this feedback loop, and they probably feel trapped.
A lot of times it's learned behavior,
Mhm,
the environment, how you grew up.
mhm.
Yeah, sometimes they're not even aware of that loop because they're just so conditioned to act and be that way. So that's what we're gonna so
What do
pressure.
you
So here
think?
are some things.
What
What's
what
up?
do what do you think people get wrong?
I think you hit it on the nail. Yeah, I think also there's a very underlying core issue root of what's actually going on. And so these are some of the things to think about where this attitude could be coming from. Pressure, fear of failure, low confidence, burnout, feeling unheard. This was a big one for me, feeling unheard, feeling misunderstood. And then another one, external life stress. So, what's going on outside of your athletic court, field, wherever you perform? It's like off the field, what's going on? And again, for me, us, I think it showed up differently, but those last 2 were the biggest ones for me. And because I felt misunderstood even in our home life. People would make comments judgmental about our home, about our lack of, and I think that directly correlated to sports.
They did?
Sure.
Wow, I
We
guess you blocked all that out.
yeah, I mean, we there were a lot of people that had opinions about mom being a single parent and dad wasn't around and the Jones girls. We were misunderstood a lot.
Interesting. I must have been, I don't know, just maybe too young to really even fully I just wasn't aware of that. I was just in my own little world.
Yeah, I think like again, I don't want to speak on behalf of her. I think she was misunderstood with the whole swimming incident. That's a whole different conversation, but I think our home life there was a lot of misunderstanding which people negatively labeled us. Not all, a lot though. You know, we mom like how many times were we sitting in the parking lot waiting for her to pick us up?
Yeah, I don't know, I just didn't know any other way. It's just like the way it was.
Right, I'm, like, going back to you become so used to certain behaviors that becomes your norm, but when then you're on the outside, you're like, I mean, look at you now as a parent. If you were late that many times picking up your daughter, you see it differently now because you have an adult brain. You're older, you're wiser, you are in a relationship, you're not a single parent. No, it is different. So you're able to see it from a different lens. But yeah, like for mom, I mean, and we're not blaming her by any means, but it was very chaotic. It was very chaos. So this is moving on to like the why of the conversation. Instead of reacting to behavior, what happens when we get curious about it? And so let me reframe that. Instead of jumping right to they have an attitude problem. Why or what can we do and start thinking about where maybe it's coming from?
Well, and that comes back to connection. And a lot of times it's just tough. Like I know for me, you only have a certain amount of time with your athletes. You have pressure, your own external pressures from like the job or whoever you need to perform for to like get all the work done within a certain amount of time. And I think that's just like an additional thing that now we have to think about, and it's just a lot. Like just even coming up with a practice plan alone can take hours, and then implementing the practice, and then looking at post practice. So like having to do all that like mental work with someone, I think we just aren't trained for or even know how to like work into the workload because we're already so overloaded. And I think when we were growing up, the mental wasn't as important, I think, as it is now.
Gosh, I mean, it wasn't even it was like, for me, it was, "You have an attitude problem, I'm gonna punish you." I used to get punished for acting that way. I was threatened in college. I was threatened. Yeah, so it wasn't even like, which leads to this question, I never had this. What does it look like when a coach actually asks why? Why are they acting this way? Like, going back to, like, being curious about it. I wonder
Right.
what happened in her day today. What's her upbringing?
Mhm.
What's her home life like? I never got asked any of those questions.
No.
It was always like, people don't wanna play with you, people don't wanna be around you, and it was this very cold. I think I still have some resentment.
Mhm.
But it was a very harsh way to react to. I was essentially a child. I was a teenager. Even in college, I was still such a baby. I knew nothing. So that's one question that I think, being curious about the why. So that's one. What does it look like when a coach actually asks why? How do you balance accountability with understanding? And kind of what you were saying is, coaches have so much on their plate, practice plan, getting there on time, the whole team that they have to lead. And so where do you find the balance?
Yeah, and it's tough too because you can't even calling it out now, like, in front of everyone is can be detrimental, but coming back to that accountability, you do need them to, like, become aware of it. You know?
Mhm.
So I guess it's coming down to delivery, and I do think that maybe you need a little bit of that intimacy there, like maybe a one-on-one setting or like a two-on-one setting, like with head coach, assistant coach, parent even maybe, just to help develop the habit of becoming aware of it. And I agree with you that it does come back to kind of that self-awareness to even be able to put all the things together. Oh, I didn't get enough sleep today. Mom picked me up late. I don't have new shoes. Everyone else in my class has new shoes. Like my shoes are falling apart and I have duct tape on them. All these minor things to us now because we're adults. But like when you're a kid, it's like that's your whole world.
And I'll put this in perspective, and I won't share anyone's names. So, cause and this one was like, this really hit me hard. When I think I was either going to be I was this is at OU, and again, so, like, anytime I had an attitude, I would, like, have to go run the convo stairs. It was just like, we're gonna punish you, never address my attitude. Well, one day, the head coach and assistant coach, and again, this is not verbatim, this is my experience and my memory. They brought me in, they sat me down, and they're like, "If you don't change," it was basically, "If you don't change your attitude, we're gonna take away your scholarship." And I was like, I think I just started crying, because what they didn't see, and going back to the curious, I was never asked, like, we were getting evicted from our home around that time. Mom was losing her business. There were so many things. I hope I don't get emotional right now. I don't want to. But there were so many things that were going on that they weren't even that wasn't even on their radar of, like, where my hurt was coming from. And, like, going back to being misunderstood, I was just felt like my whole world stopped. And when I look back at that, I do have resentment. I'm just mad and hurt, mostly hurt, of, I wish they would have asked why, or just a little curious of where my pain was coming from. And all they saw was the outward appearance of my so-called attitude.
Well,
So that was
you're a tool for performance. Athletes are essentially tools for performance, tools for achieving game success, right?
Yeah, they were strictly looking at me from a sports team. They weren't looking at Jessica Jones as this human being going through. And again, I'm not trying to act like I had it. Everyone has a story. What I'm saying is, I think adults, coaches, parents, we need to do a better job of asking the whys and getting curious of what's actually going on.
Absolutely. For me that comes down to you're more than an athlete. You're
Right.
a human being. For me, that was tough for me once I came out of that athletic realm and I was like, wasn't going to be pursuing sports as heavily as I was. Like, who am I now? Like, what is life beyond athletics? Like, what's my identity? And that's why I think it's so important to nurture those humanistic qualities in athletes while they're in the thick of it so that they don't lose that sense of identity, right?
Yep.
And they can come out of it still like feeling confident about, just themselves as a person and being able to, hard conversations, how they have increased their self-awareness of, all the circumstances that are surrounding any given moment. Yeah, other outside skills or passions that they might have. I think it's easy to get lost in that because we're so conditioned as coaches too to kind of just see our athletes as these kind of tools for performance output.
Yeah, and, I'm gonna add to just being a part of a team. I used to get upset, like, seeing what some of my other teammates would do, like, before practice or before games, and that used to bother me because I was the one, like, going to the gym after we lost, like, being so hard on myself.
Right.
They were, like, out partying, and again, like, I just didn't have we didn't really ever have these conversations of life. I feel of life. Okay, so anything you wanna add before I move on?
Well, yeah, just that, maybe like sports, whatever output you choose to do, that's like an escape for some people. So I do think not everyone might need that kind of guidance or counseling. And I
Well,
just
and
wonder,
I'm not saying that either. I think just like an awareness of most of the time, there's other things going on than what you see on the surface, and not to jump to conclusions.
right.
And not and I'll even go even further because it still happens. I've saw it this past weekend, punishing someone for the way they're acting instead of talking to them about it.
Yeah, that's why I feel mental coaching is so important, like to have that resource for athletes now, which is why I'm really happy that you and I have been able to partner in that for my club season this year. Cause, you've had one on ones, which I can't even imagine having that access to something like that. Like when I was in my peak performance years, like that could have really helped me.
Same.
So it's nice to see this kind of come full circle for us being able to give back in ways that like we never really had experience in receiving when we were young athletes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot of my purpose for sure. Okay, so what should people do differently? So here are some questions to think about. What's a better first response than punishment? How about just having a conversation? Hey, I'm
Yeah.
noticing you're rolling your eyes. What's beyond that? What's beneath the rolling of the eyes? Like, how was your day of
Yeah.
school? What's
Or
going
like
on?
let's check in after practice today. Or let's
Yeah.
find a time to check in.
Yeah, I do that one a lot before we start. I'm like, "All right, a quick check-in. I'm gonna hold some space. Is anything heavy going on in your lives or just anything you wanna get out in the open?"
Mhm.
Raise their hand.
Yeah, we started this year too with, and this was inspired by Jeff Carlson, who just left OU. I went to one of his coaching summits, and he does journaling with his athletes. So each athlete gets a journal. So then you can just have that one-on-one dialogue and that one-on-one, discourse. So you can get that heavy stuff out if you don't feel comfortable doing it in a group setting.
That's
So that
great.
could be like another approach. Like, yeah, I'm noticing this. Maybe I make that the prompt for this week's journal entry or something.
Yeah. So that's a great question to kinda shift the conversation. What's a better first response than punishment? How can coaches build trust so athletes open up? I think a big one is just kinda allowing and giving almost like freedom to, like, have these big feelings. You're allowed to feel angry. You're allowed to be upset. You're allowed to be sad. You're allowed to be happy. What do you do with it though? Like where's that energy though going? And I think and I never had that. It was just like downward spiral.
Yeah. I also think we need to be vulnerable in front of these kids. We need to also share. I've been dealing with some really heavy stuff this week. like some life-threatening illnesses, and it's just like kind of got my head in like not the right space. And I was struggling a lot this week, like really seeing that honesty, I think is so important because we want to feel seen. And this is something I learned in the art world as an artist is often the most personal is the most universal. So even though we feel alone in those big feelings, once you get it out and share, you would be surprised at how many other people are like, "Yes,
They relate with you.
I feel seen. Thank you. Thank you for saying what I could never have said," or "Thank you for saying hard things about your life in front of all of us because we're here together. We're in this together."
Yeah,
And then
self-disclosure.
yeah, and then coming back to the safe space too, as you had mentioned, providing that space to be able to
Yeah,
do so.
yeah. Well said, Casey. And, lastly,
Thank
regarding
you.
the shift, namaste. What's the risk of getting this wrong?
Losing, I feel like for me, like I quit because of it. Like I
Like
just
you said.
walked away.
Yeah.
So the risk is doing permanent damage.
Yeah, I put so much blame on myself for all those years. Even with FIU, oh my gosh, it took me a long time to get over that. And I'm using a lot of absolutes today, but I will say this because things happened at FIU with me and another athlete. Actually, probably all my teammates had some sort of feelings. But I had to go in and speak to the athletic director my senior year, and I didn't say anything. I didn't have a whole long list of like what happened. But what I said was, what happened this year should never happen to an athlete. And that's all I said. And I
And it's
meant
so
it and I
true
will
because
say it again.
you've gone on to carry this for the rest of your life, like that
Yeah.
baggage.
And the risk is like I almost lost myself because others didn't see me. Others didn't know how to even just talk to me. It was, you're this, so do this. It was just a lot of punishment and threats. Punishment, threats was like my cycle. And it really tore me down where I felt for a lot of years. I mean, I was really depressed. I felt less than. Yeah. A lot of hurt
Even though
there.
you were like this amazing athlete and did a
Yeah.
lot of things that most people can't even do.
Yeah, they didn't like, I felt like they didn't see what I was actually doing behind, when I would have this my quote unquote attitude problem. They just really didn't know how to guide it. They really
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah, but just lacking the skills. And also too stuck in that old school coaching mentality that was, and we talked about this in earlier episodes, that was designed by male coaches, right? So the way we treat male athletes seeped into women's sports. But that's not to say men don't struggle with things. Men have attitude as well, but it's just the approach should and needs to change. And I do think it
Yeah.
is. We're starting to see a little more compassion, especially in the realm for the children with youth.
Ego comes to mind a lot. There a lot of ego driven, I know. And I'm pausing because, I think of how they acted back then. And I'm really grateful that I, in a way, had that experience because just an athlete should really never have to go through those times. And so I look
I
at
feel
like
the
what I'm
same.
doing. Yeah, I mean, you
I
and
feel grateful for all the bad things that happen. I'm like, "Okay, now I know what we should be doing."
what you experienced at Capital University. Yeah, I think the bottom line is it's not okay. It is it's not okay. You have children. You
Yeah, it's
really
it's it's lazy coaching in a lot of ways.
I'm gonna this happened yesterday. What was it, 2 days ago? And I wish I said something. I didn't see it, but we were playing against a team. Yeah, and remind you, this is 3rd and 4th grade. Apparently, the coach on the other team, she got so mad, she ended up throwing her clipboard and it broke into pieces. I didn't
That's a
see it, but I
oh,
heard it. And I really try to just focus on our team, right? Because they see that as a distraction and then they're distracted. But those poor girls.
right.
And after the game, I just wish I would have said something to that adult because I think a lot of times they don't know how to act or self-regulate, and they let their really big emotions get the best of them,
Right.
where now those girls are gonna be, what's the word?
Absorb that
Traumatized.
behavior. Oh, yeah.
Because they're 4th grade, they're 10 years old, witnessing their coach screaming and throwing her clipboard because they didn't get an angle to target. It was really it's I'm, like, laughing, but behind my laughter is sadness for these poor girls. Okay, so moving on, the hard truth. This is the well, okay, so the hard keep it real, don't go too soft. At the same time, not everything gets a pass. So, when is it actually an attitude issue versus how do you hold standards without shutting someone down?
Uh-huh.
And I think it's really important to have these conversations before, during, and after. So preseason, season, before, after practices, tournaments. Just have those weekly, monthly check-ins. Coaches learn about coping, learn
Yeah,
about
that's the biggest thing, educating coaches on how to deal with
yeah, asking
athletes
like, "Hey,
losing
how you
emotion.
doing?" Getting to know your athlete, getting to know your athlete off the court, asking about, what they're into outside of their sport. How many kids are their parents married? Are they divorced? Like, what's going on at home?
Right.
What's one thing you wish more coaches understood about this?
I think for me, just it's not just a surface level thing when it comes to attitude, and we've been discussing that and talking about that, how it's like a little there's layers to it. It's a little bit deeper than just, "I have an attitude because I don't like you," or what you're saying, or what we're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. And I was thinking about the example I gave you that happened, what, 2 days ago? I think the best thing that she could do coming back into that gym is saying, "I'm sorry." I think the coaches also have a responsibility to admit when they're wrong. Maybe acknowledge that they don't know everything. I think and going back to kind of what you said, just being vulnerable that I'm also a human and I'm gonna make mistakes and I'm not gonna do everything right and I'm learning as well. Yeah, what's one thing you wish more coaches understood about this? I think that a lot of time attitude, it's such a layered topic, and just to know your athletes better, try to get to understand your athletes and where they're coming from. Put yourself in their shoes would be a big one for me. So who's ever listening, Casey, lastly, if someone is listening and dealing with this right now, what should they do first?
I think they should have the courage to reach out for help and ask for help.
When I read that, I think of my 13-year-old self. And if I'm hearing this podcast, I can acknowledge that, yes, people have said that I get angry. I'm very competitive, that I have an attitude problem. And I could go to my parents. Maybe I can go to a mentor or another parent that I trust or that sees me for me. And you're right, like ask for help. How can I learn? Like, how can I channel these really big emotions that I'm feeling to be better, to be a better human being? And that one's really tough too, because, like, I even think about our home life, and our home life was so chaotic. That wasn't going to change overnight either.
Right.
So I think it's very nuanced, and I think we need a village for a reason. A good village, a healthy village, not a toxic village.
Well,
So
the
maybe
people who
it's not about
truly
fixing. Go
I
ahead.
just think the people who truly care for you and support you want to help. And I think that's another skill that you have to develop is like knowing who's really advocating for you and who's really in your corner. 'Cause you can't go to everyone.
Is seeing you for you. Like Ashley Case is a good. She saw me for who I was. She really did. Yeah, like get that's a really good point. So maybe it's not about fixing attitudes, it's about understanding people. And maybe that's what it's about. And that's a huge one for me for sure. Like understanding where it's coming from. And if we are in this together, how can we still be on the same path and come together instead of dividing us apart?
I think slowing down is important because it allows more space for intentionality. I think we're in such like the constant go, go, go mentality that when you allow yourself to slow down and let those more humanistic qualities kind of enter the safe space, growth can happen there and support can be felt.
That's a really big one. Support can be felt.
Yeah, like you can lean into your coaches. Like I would never open up to any of the coaches that I had.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not like in the way that we're talking about and in the way that we need.
Right, right. Yeah, it was never introduced to us, uh, from a nurturing, safe space.
Mhm.
It was
But
more
maybe
like,
that's the go ahead.
"No, I ju go."
I was just gonna say, I wonder though, how much of that is on the coach and how much of that falls on the parent. Like if a parent is seeing this, a parent should be stepping in too and advocating for their child. Like what the coach is offering isn't helping my athlete through this right now, my child through this. Maybe I need to get professional help. Like no, like a parent actually seeing it who's self aware and is able to, again, to kind of step in and advocate on behalf of their child.
Right, because you don't toughness doesn't need to be loud.
And I think in your case, like with us and our experience, like mom just, she had to lean into all those external connections that we had because she needed help and she couldn't do it all.
Well, and then when we go to college, I mean, she didn't like with your experience, she's not there, right? So you're trusting these people to basically take care of your kid in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. And mom, when I was in Florida, she couldn't come and be there for me.
Hmm.
And in your experience, the same. You were going through a really tough time with your coach, and I think it's just I could we could keep talking about this conversation forever just because there's just so many pieces to it, and as you get older, when you are away from your parents, you still have to understand, like, those are still children developing.
And that's what we're so easy to forget because they're in adult bodies and they're doing adult things, but they're still a little underdeveloped when it comes to full neurological.
Shay. Okay, well, we'll wrap this up for today. I know you have to leave. You're a busy, busy mom. Thank you for being here. I'm glad you're healthy. You look a lot better. You look great.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a dark cave there for a minute, but we're back,
Man.
baby.
I'm glad you're out of that cave. And we'll see everyone next.
We'll see everyone next time. And let's close with a question for everyone. If anyone wants to share any times that they've had attitude.
Yeah, we would love to hear from your experience with regards to attitude problems. And it could be
Yeah.
if you were the athlete, the coach, maybe you learned from it, a parent. What's your experience been like?
Yeah. What were you going through? What did you maybe need in those moments?
What did you need during those moments? That's a really good question. All right, Casey, I love you.
All right. Love you
Welcome
too. We'll
back.
see you next time.
Okay.
Bye.